Or not. Oh, there we go. Hey, everybody, we're live. I don't even know what the day is. It's November something here. It's Friday, November 6th. You're hanging out with my community manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. As always, you can hang out with us on our Twitter chat. We also have this live stream. Our Twitter chat is hashtag CMGR Hangout, where I know some of you guys are hanging out right now, so thanks for joining us on a Friday. If you like what you're seeing today, you want to see a little bit more, maybe you have some ideas, you have some friends that want to hop on, maybe you want to hop on, head over to our website at mycmgr.com and click on the button that says participate. You can fill out a form. We'll get your requests. And it's really you guys who make this come alive every Friday. So today, Dom will have tacos delivered during the show to his house, but that's a little off script. We have an open mic. We have an open mic day today, so a little bit of a crazy schedules on Sherry and Dom and I, and so today we just decided let's bring a lot of awesome people together and just do some open mic, and that's what we're going to be doing. Shout out to you guys, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, but today we're going to take a little bit longer to introduce yourselves, so tell us who you are, and then really tell us your, not a 20-minute story, but more than a 20-second story of your journey with community management. So just kind of like would love to hear what kind of stuff you guys have done and all of that. We'll just start with that. So Vincent, if you can pop on and say hi, we'll start with you.
Right off the bat, huh? Yeah, let's do it. I'm Vincent Orlick. I am currently the Social Media Club Phoenix president, and we are reviving that this year. It's been almost a year now, actually. I'm also the social media manager for a company called Plexus Worldwide here in the Phoenix area in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have roughly 300,000 reps, ambassadors, independent distributors that I work with. And prior to this, I've been in Phoenix for about 10 years. I'm originally from the New England area, Providence, Rhode Island, so you can probably detect some sort of an accent on my part. So my quick story is that I ended up working in community management, social media management, as a result of my time here. When I first moved here to Phoenix, I worked for the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com on the sales side with real estate agents and brokers, and then also on the retail side. And I had my own territory, so I was in sales. I was an outside retail sales rep, working with kind of the small businesses here. I had my own territory, and this was about 2009, and what I was finding was, I was kind of a Facebook user. I was on it a little bit. I had a Twitter account, and I was on like Yelp, LinkedIn, had a profile. In my sales capacity, I found this thing called Yelp, and I was like, oh, this has restaurant reviews on it. So I would go to the restaurants in my territory, and I printed up their page with the reviews, and I would highlight the negative reviews, and I would walk in there, and this is in the efforts of bringing them value and trying to make them aware that, hey, this stuff is out there in case you didn't know. And guess what? Most of them didn't. They didn't even know that they had a Yelp page whatsoever. So that was news to them, number one. It was about 50-50 if they were happy to hear that or not, kind of dependent on the reviews. And so my efforts at that point in time were to use that to be like, hey, you have this information that's out there, and you can maybe advertise or market towards this to address it if you need to, or to take advantage of it. So from there, I ended up working with Facebook here in Phoenix. There was a pilot program that began with the Small Business Solutions pilot team that Facebook has had here in about 2012, and it was pre-IPO, and the goal was to work with small to medium-sized businesses to help them start advertising on Facebook and learn how to use Facebook. So that's from there, it's been all gangbusters. Just kind of getting on the role of being in the social media world and community management, and now I have this humongous community of, like I said, about 300,000 reps that I help train, educate, answer their questions, pretty much anything having to do with social media.
Awesome. Well, hey man, thanks for joining us, and can't wait to hear more. Hey Nikki,
Thanks
how
for
are
having
you?
me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, everybody. I am Nikki Smith with BTC Revolutions. I am a community manager and community manager trainer for BTC. And my journey with social media, actually, my background, I was a trainer in the restaurant business. I opened 24 new restaurants. 21 of them were for Applebee's. I was much younger and could run around on my feet 90 hours a week and still make last call at the bar. But being in the restaurant business, I was the one who was going to the execs going, this was a while ago too, we really should have a Facebook page. And I had to explain to them what Facebook was, what the advantages of Facebook were, and how we could, they were worried about, people posting, not negative reviews, but just, they were worried about horror stories, social media horror stories. But so when I started with BTC, I didn't really have that much social media experience, but I learned, Brew built me, actually. Brew built me from scratch and taught me everything, and I love it. And now I keep on learning things and keep on passing things along to the team, and I love my job.
Sweet.
Hey, I think it's my turn. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
It's my turn. I got tacos, guys. My tacos just showed up, so you want to talk about off script? Torchy's Tacos in Austin. Awesome. Anyway, hey, all. I am Dom. I also am a community manager with BTC Revolutions. My journey to community management started way back in the day. Actually, it started with, I would say, back in 2007. I found the idea and all of the stuff that was surrounding Barack Obama very, very interesting. And back in the old school, Facebook group days, where you could see who the admins were on the right-hand side, and you could just message them and stuff like that. There was this group called Students for Barack Obama, and I was 19, I think, and I was like, this sounds cool. So I sent the admin a message. I was like, can I help with stuff? And they were like, sure. And so I started doing stuff like that, and just it was probably 2008. I first heard Gary Vee for the first time, and he was talking about social media, and it was really, really awesome. And he I became obsessed with it, and I just started studying it myself. And that sort of led into being the young kid in all of these jobs that would be like, hey, let's start a Facebook page, or we should have a Twitter or something like that. And I would just had little projects here or there. And then it was very beginning of 2013. No, very beginning of 2014. I got my first actual community manager role at a company for a foreign exchange student organization. Basically just made it up myself and told them what they should do, and they gave me some money. And through that and getting involved in those, that's where I came across this community, where I first met Sherry and I first met Brew. Big ups to Sarah Nagel, Sprout Sarah, for getting me hooked up with this community. And then through that, I was looking for something a little bit more overarching focused, not working on just one account that really doesn't do social, or doesn't really understand it. There wasn't a lot of buy-in, and that's when Brew built me as well and brought me into the fold. And I also have to say, big ups to Nikki as well. Like when she's talking about sharing stuff with the team and working like not only with your community but with your community of people that you're working with as well. That's really awesome. So yeah, that's my long and winding road. So now I'm gonna kick it over to someone else and eat some tacos in my little square down here.
All right, I guess I'm up next. I am David Dewald, community manager for quite a long time. I got my start in the mid 90s, creating fan sites for things I was interested in, mostly video games and that kind of thing. One of those fan sites was just happened to work out to be quite popular, and it grew quite large, and moved into another bigger site and had another site with merged with us, and it just kind of really worked out well. So that hobbyist experience, I was able to translate over into a real job eventually. Eventually working for Acclaim Games, and then after that working for BioWare, EA, whichever you prefer to call it. And after that, I switched over into the business world. I saw the business communities were starting to catch hold. The gaming industry had been doing it for a good decade at that point, and it was and the business world kind of woke up to it and realized that this was something that they could leverage, not just for marketing, but for improving the products and connecting with their users, and just ultimately, making everything better for everybody. And I saw it as a great opportunity, and so I made that change, and it's been great. I've been doing it now for 15 years. I continue to learn daily from people, so it's never a dull moment. You never know what's around the corner. You make mistakes and you pick yourself up and move on. It's great. I love the job. There's nothing in the world like it. It's hard work, but the rewards so outweigh the tough and hard parts of it. So.
Right on.
I think it's my turn. All right. Hey, guys. It's Barack. Barack DC on the interwebs and everywhere. And if you've been around long enough, you may have known me as DC Princess Q way back in the day. So my journey, actually, I was not supposed to be in marketing or communications or anything like that. My path was law school. And I worked in a lot of law firms, and I was a blogger, wrote under a pen name, and I was on Twitter. And when I lost my job, my last full-time job when I was in DC, I was kind of freelancing as like a virtual assistant. So again, nothing to do with social. And I decided, hey, why don't I give this thing a try? Like, I like Twitter and I like blogging, and maybe I can find some kind of a job. So my path started with a lot of nonprofits and small businesses and working with them and just kind of building my experience. My first foray into community management was with Brazen Careerists. Ryan Paugh kind of took a chance on me back in 2010 and brought me on as a community manager associate, and I realized that that's what I wanted to do because it brought together everything I love, which is customer service and writing and playing around on Twitter all day, as people assume we do. So my path I didn't have a traditional path. I just took on a lot of projects, tried on different things, tried the agency life for a bit, was not a fan of it. I've done B2C and B2B, and most recently the three companies that I've worked with are Fluke, which is in Washington, in Seattle, and that was my first global community manager role. I'm so appreciative of my boss there taking a chance on me. That was my big B2B experience. I've been with Google. They've been my main client for the past year and a half, building a small business community. And most recently, working with my best friend, which is always trouble, Amber Osborne with Meshfire. I'm doing community management for them. So it's, I call myself an amplifier, but at the core of it is community management and content and writing. and storytelling. So yeah, ask me anything that has to do with all of that. And please ask us questions. We're here to answer them for you today. So, yay.
Awesome. I love hearing everyone's origin stories. This is great. Hey, Allie.
Hi. I'm Allie Greer. I am based in San Francisco, and I am the city marketing manager at Zumper. We are an app to find and rent apartments, and we have listings across the whole country. So if anybody is moving or knows anyone who's moving, Zumper. And before Zumper, I was at a company called Scoop It. And Scoop It, I'm sure a lot of people here have heard Scoop It probably from me before, but Scoop It is a content curation platform that kind of took a turn to the enterprise space a couple of years ago while I was there. So I kind of had a little mixture of the B2C experience at the beginning and then kind of like the transition into B2B. So that was really interesting. My whole background up until Zumper was pretty much B2B, and I guess I kind of went through my story backwards, but like Scoop It was my first job out of college, so that's pretty much where I started. Became a community manager by accident because Scoop It was just starting and they were like, oh, community manager is our thing, let's get one. And then we were all just kind of like, oh, what does a community manager do? Let's figure it out. So it's kind of just, where I came from. And I think I went on my very first community manager hangout around this time of year, like 3 years ago, which is really crazy. And yeah, I have since had a couple people sleep in my apartment and come to Alcatraz with me and do other fun community manager conference things, and it's been pretty cool to meet a lot of people from across the whole country. And so now what I'm doing at Zumper is kind of a mixture of community management and marketing. So it's interesting to see the difference between B2B and B2C. And you think, B2C is going to be so much more fun. And, like, it's definitely fun. But it's also really different because it's actually a lot easier to market to marketers than it is to market to not marketers. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting experience, and now I'm learning kind of a lot about both sides. So
Awesome. Well, that's good. Good to have you. Let's see. My origin story with community management. I mean, I like to tell people, before I even knew what community really was, I think I, just was involved in it. In the 80s, I'd fire up my computer and hope my mom didn't pick up the phone for at least a half hour or so, and would dial into BBSs and meet people there, chat with them, trade games, and yeah, Dom, they had computers in the 80s. In fact, I will tell you that when we wanted to go on the internet, it sounded a little bit like this. There we go. Yeah. So that's how you knew you had arrived. But so then in college is really where I think community started being a little more apparent to me. In the mid '90s, hung out in a lot of like bigger online chat groups of programmers and hackers and kind of software traders and things like that. And then eventually found myself, through a series of kind of more just being involved in the internet in general, at a startup called Meet Meme Social Trading Cards. And it's there that I became a community manager. Like, literally my job was to run the social media and also build kind of like this large audience of people who loved our product, who wanted to come back and buy more. And that's where I met Tim McDonald, who I learned a ton about community from, just listening to him, watching him, and hanging out on this crazy little show called My Community Manager, when it was just a Twitter chat, and we did a live Google Hangout, but it wasn't live like broadcast. That kind of predated that. And now at BTC Revolutions, I think I love in applying all of the principles of community to all the different levels of marketing, digital and social, that we do, right? So at the end of the day, my filters are always, what does it do for the community? How does it strengthen the community? How do we bring more love to the community? It's always about them and never about us. And those are really, those community management principles are what helps us launch really successful marketing campaigns for our clients. So let's see. So I'm going to jump into, we did have a question right off the bat, which I'm going to hopefully share my screen here and bring in. This is from Kristen. Kristen asks, what's your favorite social network of all and why? And so before we answer this, so one thing I think is always interesting about community management in general is that, for a while, I never realized that it existed before, quote unquote, like social media, like Facebook, Twitter. That's why I love hearing historians' origin stories, because it really shows you that the idea and the philosophy and the practice of community management's been around for so long. But I think lately, when you think community management, a lot of times people think social media. So I'll let you guys randomly, whoever wants to jump in, what's your favorite social network of all and why? And are we excluding MySpace or including it on this one? Because, I don't know.
The MySpace today is not the MySpace of old. It really isn't.
Yeah, no, I started blogging on MySpace, and no, definitely the new one is not the same thing at all. But yeah.
I'm going to have to give the same answer I give my kids. I love them all equally.
Oh, dang.
No, I will say, and I will jump on and say, I love Twitter. Twitter is my boo. Twitter is the reason that I was able to meet so many people and transition from just being a user to being somebody who's an influencer. And I've met so many people, so many amazing people on Twitter, and had back in the day when we had tweet-ups and met people in person off of like Twitter chats. Those were always fun. So as much as I love the other social networks, including the old MySpace, Twitter will always have my heart, definitely.
I'm going to have to agree with that. Now, I will say that Instagram is making a race up in there for me with Twitter, and Blab as well. I'm slowly getting addicted to Blab.
For me, I spend the most time on Facebook. I'll be honest. Like at first, I hated Facebook, and Twitter was like always my to die for network. But now I think I tweet on Fridays, and I'll probably like a bunch of stuff that people tweet about me during the week. But I just don't use it as much as I did. But my other weird sort of social network that I do spend quite a lot of time on is Yik Yak. So, and I would consider that a social network. So.
By the way, Bruce Yik Yaks are the greatest thing. So everybody tweet him and be like, Bruce, send me one of your Yik Yaks, because they're absolutely hilarious. I would, I'm gonna have to say, like, I would normally go with Twitter. I think just out of the sheer fact that, like, I mean, if I was to list my 10 best friends, 9 of them I met on Twitter. And it's the reason I have the job that I have, that I'm doing what I'm doing. I also, partially because, like, I've done some work for some clients more recently, but I am horribly obsessed with Snapchat. I love it so very much. I go on to Snap Codes, and, like, I find people to follow, and just, like, watch their stories, and, like, the interaction that you have there, I think it's really, really interesting. I think it's interesting to see how Snapchat's going to move forward with stuff in the realm of being able to share other people's snaps on your story, because right now there's like no really easy way to do that. There is, but they yell at you for using a third-party app. But I just loved it because it's just so, like, the storytelling is fantastic, and that's why I love social media in general and community, is the ability to storytell. And I think that Snapchat just does a fantastic job at that.
Yeah, I'm actually a big Twitter fan. It's probably the one I use by far the most. Facebook for me is mostly friends and family, people that I can say that, are closer to me than, me shouting in the room that is Twitter. So I keep that pretty tightly tied down. But yeah, Twitter's the one that's the big one for me.
I'll
Is it
I'll
my
jump
turn?
in. Oh,
Oh,
good,
go
Allie.
ahead. No, no,
Let
you
you
go
go.
ahead. You go first.
Okay, okay. I think because this question comes up a lot, right? And I think I always compare it to like the when you're trying to name an MVP in a sport. It's like, well, are they the most valuable player to the league, or the most valuable player to their own team, or what? Like, there's differentiation. So, for me, like personally, I I love Blab. 2 months ago, if you'd asked me this, I would have said Snapchat. I love Snapchat now too. But Blab, like over the last couple months, I just see it as being such a huge, has so much potential, and even more so, like I know there's a lot of people that are dedicated to Hangouts and things, and I think they all have their place. And Periscope too, same thing, all different uses. Blab is not private. They don't intend on having a privacy option. So certainly Hangouts and something like a Zoom app or something is going to have that type of application. Um, but Snapchat, and then for Blab, for me, it's just the power that you have, and the willingness it feels like that people have to kind of jump on and use it for the most part. Except for there's some people out there that they view it as more of like the shiny new object, which is it's a little annoying when it's people that are um, in the social media community management, this whole industry of innovation and tech, and they look at it as something that just to maybe take away your attention from more important things, when there's certainly that element, but there's a lot of potential. So for me, it's Blab. I mean, Facebook for me is always a given. Like I don't. That's why I don't really mention it, because Facebook. Everyone's got Facebook. All my people, connections, everything are on Facebook. But Snapchat is still super personal at this point for me. I'm not following or connected with every single person there like I am on like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and then Blab. So Snapchat and Blab for me are the two.
I think for me, this is an interesting question because I have two different answers if we're talking about like professional and my personal use. So for me, I have always kind of been um, somebody who tried to keep that separate. So I think, for work, I really love Twitter and I love Instagram, but personally, like, I kind of I really, really, really love Instagram the most, I think. I love Instagram is the only social network that I truly enjoy following so many strangers on, because it's just like I once heard the founder of Instagram speak, Kevin, and he said like when they first started Instagram, like their goal is to have somebody be able to share like a moment in time that they're experiencing with like anyone they wanted to share that with. And I just think that is so cool. And I think that, like, obviously Snapchat is adding to that, but admittedly, I don't really follow people on Snapchat who I don't know, and I'm not really friends with anybody on Snapchat who I don't know. But for my personal, like, social network, as millennial as it might be, all the time over, like, a lot, like, texting even, which I laugh at myself because my coworkers are, like, a little bit younger than me, and I kind of like, hey, have you heard of this thing? And I like might not have heard of it or something, and like I'm like the old one. But actually, I really do love using Snapchat. Only with my actual social net, like my people who I know, people who I know, because that's very personal to me.
Cool. We got a question came in here. Jeff Soto. Thanks for hanging out with us, Jeff. Jeff asks, what piece of advice would you give to someone looking to start a community?
Listen, 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 listen. You can have all the greatest ideas and you think they're all good in your head, but if they're not what people actually want, it's gonna crash and burn. So listen a lot first before you even think about starting one.
Yeah, know your audience. Know that it's going to be hard. But knowing your audience is the most important, and finding your early champions. You've got to have that, or it just won't ever get off the ground.
Yeah, I agree. And definitely bounce off ideas. Oh, thanks. Sorry. Go ahead, Nikki.
No, you go ahead.
All right. I was just going to say I was going to agree with all that, and remember to bounce off ideas with people before you bring it public. So build like kind of a private community among those champions while you're listening, and then do a lot of behind-the-scenes work before making it public.
I would definitely say that, and to do it, experiment, look at what other people are doing. And I mean, the only way you can learn about social media is doing social media.
Yeah, that's a good point. Find someplace and volunteer as a moderator so that you get that kind of experience.
Cool. Here's another question from Lindsay, Ohio Social Mom. Hey, Lindsay, thanks for hanging out with us. Says, who of you have been on social the longest? I started out on MySpace in 2003. You know, it's funny because we actually had a side chat going on. Oh boy, I don't even see me right now. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you're
Okay.
good, bud.
All right. Yeah, we had a side chat going on and talking about what is earliest social media, right? I mean, for me, I think earliest social media, I think probably IRC, pre-AOL. So AOL chat rooms were built on the IRC framework, and
Yeah, but I would argue
was
that's just chat. You know, that's
just-
not.
that's
Not.
just-
See, how do you?
But how's it chat? Well, okay, so here,
what
this is why I
defines
would
a
say
social media
well,
network,
this is why
right?
I would say this is. I would say this is why IRC could be defined as social media. I showed up. I went to a room on a topic, right? I showed up every day, talked to the same people, made friends that we then met in real life later. Sound familiar? I had a handle, right? Cyberbrew, right? Belonged to multiple groups all at once. Therefore multiple communities, and from all different interests, from trading illegal software to talking politics to talking different sciencey stuff. I mean, so I don't know. For me, that experience is the exact same experience that I still have on anything that's new and shiny. It's just the same stuff. So I don't know. That's just because I want to call myself OG.
I get you. So for me, probably the earliest that I can remember being in. Okay, you got to remember when I got online, the internet was black and white. Netscape was the browser to have, but it was still in beta. I think the first internet browser I used was Netscape 0.45 beta or 4.43 beta, one of those two. And really the only place that was out there at that time that had any kind of social connections besides our IRC was around back then, was a place called The Well, which is still around today. It was very forum based back then. I guess it was very discussion based. And that's probably the earliest one I can remember. The next one after that would probably be classmates.com, and I find that to be more social in that you could put in your school and find other people in your school, and it made it easier to connect that way. It wasn't just walking into a room and finding random people. You could actually kind of search for people that you might have actually known and connect that way. A little bit later on, there was a website called 6 Degrees, as in 6 degrees of separation. That never went anywhere because they could never find a way to monetize. And then there's Friendster, and then MySpace, and Facebook, and here we are today. But yeah, earliest is probably The Well. The Well was interesting in that even, 15, 16, 20 years ago, they charged you a fee to be a member. You had to send in $30 snail mail, as I recall, to become a member of The Well. and to join in the discussions. But at the time, that was where everybody who was anybody on the internet and in science and technology, they went there to discuss things. So it was a very different atmosphere.
Yeah, I think the forums, right? I mean, forums are probably from back in the day. I mean, I personally, the social media, as we would probably refer to it now, yeah, it's probably MySpace back in '03, '04, '05, somewhere around there. Um, and maybe Friendster. I think I remember setting up a Friendster account and not really doing much with it. So I don't know that I hold the record for the furthest back.
I know for sure I don't hold a record, but back when I was way too young, I was definitely in AOL chat rooms, and then
Yes.
moved on to LiveJournal, which I totally just forgot about, but that was like a community because it was social media, because we had a lot of prompts and like would always comment on others, and then we would start like groups of bloggers. But I actually, before even MySpace, my local radio station had message boards, and I actually met a lot of people like on those message boards, and we definitely kind of ran those message boards and took over. And then MySpace, and then Twitter, and now that's kind of like my progression. Zanga, no, Zanga was not much better. LiveJournal.
I'll throw down. I'll throw down
LiveJournal
about
all
this.
the way.
I'll throw down about this.
No,
Nope.
I was totally Team Zanga.
Team Zanga through and through.
freaking hated Zanga.
Chippy 2405. That Zanga got me through a lot of shit, man. I tell you what.
I think I still have a LiveJournal out there somewhere because I can't remember my login, so it's still there. But no, Team LiveJournal all the way.
Brew, do we have any other questions came rolling in? I think you're probably pulling one up.
Yeah, I was just pulling one up here. Another one came from Jeff. And Jeff asks, name communities you're not involved with that you admire.
I can grab that one. If you're in IT and you do that kind of work, you might know of a website called SolarWinds. They have a community called THWACK, THWACK. They are on the Jive platform, and I think they do an absolutely outstanding job in community and community management around their industry, which is IT and IT management stuff. They've got video content going. They've got good engagement content, and it's just an amazing community. And it's one that if I hit that wall and I'm like, I'm completely out of ideas, I'll go there and look around and see what they've done and see if there's something there that I can completely and totally steal to do in my community. Obviously adapting it to fit the needs of my communities. But I absolutely love that community and how it's run. And I've talked to many of the community managers that they've had over the years just to get insights and how they do things. But it's one that I truly, really admire. It's open. You can join it. You can take a look at it. It may not have topics you're interested in, but I think they just do a phenomenal job of keeping their community engaged and keeping them excited. IT management isn't always the most exciting stuff in the world, but they do manage to keep it interesting.
Sweet. Anyone else got a community they admire?
What about Apple, the go-to, right? Apple's community, I don't know, they're always kind of the first one that pops to mind, that they address things, people address each other, and it seems to be managed pretty well.
Sorry for the awkward silence. My computer just locked up trying to bring up another question. What else? Anybody else have a community they admire? They're not really a part of, just sort of see it from the outside in?
I would throw, I would also throw kind of the Wikipedia community out there, as far as the editors, that the community of editors that exists. I know that's so. I am not the Wikipedia expert whatsoever, but from what I've learned about it more and more, it seems like it's like a very tight knit group, and they're very committed to the site. And if anyone tries to kind of break down the wall and sneak in, it's not happening. I don't know what it's like to try to become an editor or anything, but the way that they kind of manage the site is pretty amazing given the scope of it.
Dom, I see you got a question ready, already pulled up. You want to
Yeah, for sure.
share us another time?
This is from our good buddy, the Coob, John Coob. Shout out. Who, funny enough, here's a funny story. For some reason, he got saved in my phone as voicemail, and now whenever I send a Snapchat to voicemail, it means it's going to John Coob, not to my voicemail.
What?
But yeah, I know it's the weirdest thing, and I just haven't changed it. Anyway, voicemail asks, what is your least favorite part of being a community manager? And then on top of that, so this is the either or. Answer one or the other. What does the CMGR position look like in the next 5 to 10 years? Wants to look into the future.
My least favorite part is crisis and having to deal with that. And
Yeah,
working with
I
people.
I feel
agree
like
with
most
that.
people really love that
Agreed.
when that happens.
Does anyone love crisis? Did you say, Allie, that
No.
some people love it?
I was kidding. I was being sarcastic.
I like putting
Can I
on.
be that guy? I think that there's a lot of stuff that comes after crisis if you handle it right, and there's a lot of opportunity. And it kind of, it's like a trial by fire thing, you know? As long as the crisis is not caused by something that you yourself did, then you feel like shit. But if somebody else made a mistake, then fixing that can actually kind of be fun.
Let me ask you guys this, because I'm glad you guys are all here. I need a question asked or answered, because crisis-wise, I'm going through a little bit of one right now. And how have you guys handled it when the crisis is not generated by the community itself? It's their responses to something that the brand you're managing has done, and then the community is responding negatively. I know how I want to handle it, but then my hands are also tied because I'm not the be-all, end-all decision maker. So I'd love to hear how you guys have handled anything like that in the past.
What have
I
you
think my
learned?
favorite thing in that situation is to really remember that being the community manager actually serves two purposes. So you are the liaison of the company to the community, but you're also the liaison of the community to the company. And I think that instead of feeling like, oh, my hands are tied because, the company wants me to do something else, it's more like, oh, okay, well, you have to express to the company, to the brand, what the community is feeling, but you also have the responsibility, I'm not like talking to you, I'm just saying you in general, you also have the responsibility to, represent the brand to the community. And, I feel like we always encounter this attitude of like us versus them, like brand versus community, CEOs versus community members, like CEOs versus community managers. And I think really instead of having that mindset and change to like, okay, like it makes it easier to problem solve when you think I need to get this message to these people, but I also need to get this message back to these people. It's a two-way street, and I feel like that mindset kind of helps you escape the feeling that you're fighting against something when you can bring that feedback back to the company, but you also need to bring the company's feedback back to the community, because ultimately everybody has to understand both perspectives, and no one party has more control over the other one. They're both equal.
I would add, first, it's a communication problem. You guys didn't communicate well enough in advance for whatever change it was that came into place. And you didn't involve your community in that change. That's my outside-in, looking-in perspective. And two, the community's on your side, dude. They just want things to be better. they're not communicating it probably in the nicest way. But really, they want things to be good and easy and better, and they're really trying to be on your side. So you just have to work within that reality that you come to them and you say, look, we get it, we didn't handle this well, and here's we can do what we can with this now, but going forward we're going to communicate better, we're going to get you involved earlier, and just lay out a plan to not catch them off guard with these kind of changes that cause these kinds of blow-ups.
I think one of the other things too, just to add into that, is when something like this happens, as the community manager, you really have to reiterate as much as you can to your clients that, number one, you can't view your community and your social channels like it's just like a PR newswire, like just to put out some bullshit. Like you definitely can't do that. And then even more than that, I would say that you have to say you really only get one chance. You get one shot after you mess it up, and your response after it messes up should be so on point and so well thought out, because if you put out a little bit and you try to just clean up a few parts of it, and then the community calls you out on a little more, and then you clean that up and they call you out on a little more, it'll seem so disingenuous, and your community will basically just look at you and go, the only reason you're doing it now is because we yelled at you, not because you really care about it. So, if there is something that's messed up, take some time, get your heads together. You don't have to be first, but you have to be right. So that's the biggest thing that I can think of there.
And I think as community managers, we love our communities and our brands so much. It's hard not to take it personal, and you feel defensive. So you really have to kind of look at it without feeling like you're being personally attacked.
And I just want to echo, too, what Allie said about being the voice. Almost in a way, sometimes I feel like you almost have to put on your marketing hat for a minute and market to the internal people if it is a big deal. Mm-hmm. Because, so if you have a 300,000 person community, and maybe you have ways of knowing, like, oh, yeah, here's someone who's extremely influential out there, it's almost like you have to help them by making it almost even a bigger deal than it is sometimes, so that they understand. It's kind of like the call center blowing up right now, getting tons of complaints, or in the old days we're getting shipments of hate letters through the snail mail. Just because it's happening online, sometimes I think it just takes a little bit more education, hand-holding, and screenshotting and stats, and here, let me give you some hourly updates on what's going on. And so you can kind of help them understand when it is sort of a big deal, and it's not just a few people complaining, So I think that's helping the brand itself by if they don't understand why a community being upset is a big deal,
So actually, I'm going to take that answer as a segue to circle back to the original question about what we hate about being a community manager. And I think the fact that our departments, or if you're working with clients, like the clients don't, like the different departments don't understand how crucial it is. Mm-hmm. Like the power of the community, what you're doing, why it's important to have a community and to treat them as part of the communications process instead of just an afterthought. I've dealt with this a lot with big clients, small clients, like all across industries. So that's always frustrating for me. And I think that we kind of talked about this during one of our Hangouts, I can't remember which one, about like kind of how it's a turning point for community managers right now and like the industry and our profession. And I think it's in our power to impact that, and we keep doing it, but it's still definitely an uphill battle, especially anytime you have like a new client or a new company who thinks they should have a community but they don't know how to. So I think that that's definitely the most frustrating thing for me, is whenever I'm working with different departments or different companies that they really think of community as an afterthought or as just a place to dump announcement, like Dom said, as like PR newswire, and just leave it at that.
I think for me, one of the things that I hated early on was the investment that you kind of feel in a community, right? You get this sense that you need to be there all the time, 24/7, 365, every day of the week. And you get it wrapped up, and you get so caught up in it that you tend to burn out. I think that's a problem with young community managers in the first 4 or 5 years, is that at some point you burn out because you just don't realize that you have to let it go and step away from it for a few hours at a minimum, right? So
Too real. It's too
yeah,
real.
I think we all do it. We all do it, even knowing, years later that I can burn out on this if I do this way. I still catch myself doing it, right? It'll be I'm on vacation and 3 days in, I'm like, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Something's weird, and I go check my forum, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're all good now. It's like, I'm missing my hit of community. So
It's quiet.
yeah,
Too quiet.
yeah, exactly. And so, you just need to realize that it isn't a 24/7 job. It really isn't. And that you can be there when emergencies are necessary, but you can step away from it, and you don't have to peek in on it necessarily every single day, every 2 hours. Sure, check it in the morning, check it in the afternoon, because you got to know what's going on just in case something bad happens. But just trust that your users will let you know. Most of them will have ways of messaging you to let you know if something goes wrong, really wrong, and just trust it and take that time for yourself to kind of unwind and detox from, the constant need to feel like you need to be there for the community.
All right, we got 7 minutes left. Should we try?
Oh,
Go ahead, Allie.
I just thought of one. I was like ready to let it go, and then I just thought, I was like, my least favorite part about being a community manager. I don't know if this has to actually do with being a community manager or just like a trend that I notice online that I like really don't like, and this is calling other community managers out for like strategies or doing things that you might not necessarily agree with. And I think that it's this thing has happened like online between like people who are trying to use social media, community management, whatever, for their businesses, and those people talk to each other a lot, like we're doing right now. And I think a big trend that's been happening is like this call out culture of like, if somebody makes a mistake, even if they make a mistake, like you'll get like 7 blog posts written on like how this is the worst mistake of your life and your career is over and you'll never get a job again and the brand will never recover. Or like if somebody, maybe somebody is just trying to hustle and like maybe using some tactics that might not necessarily be, the best, but if they work at scale, then like sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. And I think that I personally have sometimes felt like afraid to do something or send a tweet or put my name behind something that I've done because I'm nervous that some people might call me out or be like, oh, I can't believe you did that. Even, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, this culture of calling people out is really sad.
I think that's
Anyway,
a bigger
I'll
problem.
get off my soapbox now.
I was gonna say that's a bigger problem because that leads into media and all that kind of stuff and how we
Wait,
tend
Allie, did you just call people out for calling people out?
Yeah, I did.
No, you know what?
Did you just call me out for that?
I did. I'm gonna screenshot this and call you out.
There's a difference between calling somebody out like you just did and then like writing an article about somebody who clearly, like how many times have you either done or almost done this, tweeting something from the wrong account or whatever? Like I once tweeted from Scoop It that I went for a 10-mile run, but like it happens, and I could have accidentally tweeted something way worse than that, and somebody who I don't even know would have written a blog post because they think they're a social media influencer and saying how I should lose my job. And I think that is wildly inappropriate.
Yeah, the reaction of like, oh my god, like worst blank, 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 blank.
Right,
And
and
it's like,
I should know because I'm the expert.
right, because I have 5 small clients and
Right,
trying to get
exactly.
more right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I really think it's like it's a bigger thing among like the community management and the social media communities than anything else I've seen. It's really crazy.
It's a lot of people trying to separate themselves out too, right? Like they're just
Hmm.
they're absolutely trying to make a name for themselves if they don't have
Yeah, and at the
one or
expense of
and
others.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
terrible.
Well, if anything, here's what I don't like about that negativity, other than it being negative, and that's just dumb. But what it does, doesn't help progress us all that much, right? I mean, definitely mistakes are something we should be sharing as a community with each other. Like, oh, don't fuck up this way, right? But if we're gonna be trying to celebrate and write big blog, like, why not be writing about the good stuff that's happening? So that bosses and people with budgets, be like, can hear about all the great stuff, and that coming across their desk versus just always being scared of it. So,
Yeah, I feel like every day I read another thing like, can't believe this brand did this, or can't believe this is the
yeah,
worst
like, shut
idea
up.
ever.
Yeah.
And just like I just it's something that's actually been really getting to me, especially lately, because I just see it everywhere.
I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
No.
If anything, we're probably going to see more of it, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, because now everyone, everyone's a blogger, everyone's a publisher, everyone's a media, and that's a great thing in a lot of ways. But there's a downside to everything, I guess.
And I think that sort of plays into like what Koob was talking about, like asking his question, like where are you going to go? Where's it going to go in the next 3 to 5 years? Because all of these things are so just ingrained in culture now. Because you have that reactionary media, like David was talking about in our little side chat. You have that going on with politicians. You have it going on with people. Now you have it going on with brands and with social accounts and things like that. It's unfortunate, but like what you said, it almost gives us like that level of like status, like we're worth writing that stuff about. And I think that sort of plays into where this role is going to go. You're going to have a community manager. I think you're going to see a lot more like chief community officer, like C-suite level community management, and moving down there and having those, which you already have a little bit of now, but I think it's just going to be a whole lot more prevalent, overall when it comes to brands and things like that. So.
Or even more education on it. I just in our social media club Phoenix group on Facebook, I just posted a link to a position that's open at ASU for an assistant social media professor, and they want someone that's got a PhD, but of all the things that are listed, like social media experience is not in there. And not community management. It's like PR and statistical analysis and like all this other stuff, which was kind of funny. But the point was that's like you're going to start seeing educational institutions, higher learning. It's kind of starting to happen, but not really yet. It'll grow where the community management side will be its own course. I mean, it has to be as part of marketing, as part of the mix, like what you need to know how to do for certain disciplines in marketing. I mean, you're going to need to know how to be a community manager, and it's only going to benefit people to take courses in that even, and then the course would involve hands-on experience, hopefully. So I could see that within 10 years, maybe not 5, but within like 10 years, more education, more on the education side of it.
All right, guys, and that's a wrap. So we are out of time. But thanks for hanging out with us. Have an awesome weekend, and can't wait to hang out next Friday. So see you guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Toodles.